There's a family in Europe that's richer than you can imagine, and you can say that its influence is spreading to almost all of Europe. And the extraordinary thing is that you have never heard of them. It's a family called Wallenberg, which hails from Sweden. The Wallenberg family has achieved something that is truly unique in history. They control almost the entire economy of a country. An incredible 40% of all Swedish industry is controlled by the Wallenbergs through supervisory board positions and shareholdings in companies. To give you a better understanding of what this means, in Sweden, which has a population of 10 million, a single family is responsible for almost every single job. But that's not all. The Wallenbergs are also deeply rooted in the country's politics, run a huge bank that operates globally, and also have a share of many of the big companies you all know. But how did it come about that a single family has so much incredible power? To get to the bottom of this, we need to take a look at the beginnings of the Wallenbergs. The Wallenberg family tree can be traced back as far as the 17th century because even then, the family produced many important people, among others, the writer Jacob Wallenberg or the bishop Marcus Wallenberg. However, the Wallenbergs' meteoric rise to Europe's most powerful family began in 1856, when André Oscar Wallenberg founded Sweden's first private commercial bank. Now known as the Scandinavian Private Bank, the financial company now has 17,000 employees and more than 4 million customers worldwide. Among them are more than 3,000 large companies that entrust their finances to Wallenberg. By founding the bank, the Wallenbergs were then also able to make important contacts everywhere in politics and business. Jacob Wallenberg's son, Knut Agathon Wallenberg, was no longer just a banker, but was also elected as Sweden's foreign minister and led the country during World War I. He also bought a lot of land and built his own village there, which quickly became a popular place to live. Later, even former US Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, among others, stayed there to conduct negotiations with the Wallenbergs. Knut Agathon Wallenberg also did something else, which, together with his father's founding of the bank, is the most important foundation stone for the Wallenbergs' current strength. Together with his wife, he established the Knut and Alice Wallenberg Foundation, whose assets today amount to over 5 billion euros. Thanks to their abundance of money and their excellent connections in business and politics, the Wallenbergs' descendants then expanded their power ever further, creating an empire of countless corporate groups that are hard to discern. And not only in Sweden, but throughout Europe, and in some cases, even worldwide. Of the thousands of companies controlled by the Wallenbergs, we will now give you just a few examples, and we promise you will be surprised. Because in fact, you will soon find that there is in fact no industrial sector in which the Wallenberg family is not active. Among others, the Wallenberg Group includes the German garden tool manufacturer Gardena, with 3,500 employees, Svenska Kullerfabriken, a company with more than 43,000 employees that supplies Rolls-Royce and Formula One, among others, and the energy company ABB, whose name you may never have heard of, but in fact, it is the largest employer in Switzerland and employs more than 100,000 people worldwide. The international pharmaceutical company AstraZeneca, yes, the one with the vaccine of the same name, which has an annual turnover of more than $44 billion and is one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, or the traditional kitchen appliance manufacturer Electrolux, are also in the hands of the Wallenbergs, as well as the internet and telephone service provider Ericsson, which operates in 180 countries, and which the older ones of you may still know from the formerly popular Sony Ericsson mobile phones, and which is the world leader in 5G, or the forestry and gardening equipment manufacturer Husqvarna, the car and aircraft manufacturer Saab, or the airline Scandinavian Airlines, which carries almost 18 million passengers a year, are also part of the Wallenberg group of companies. In fact, we could continue this list almost endlessly. But to keep it short, let's mention one more shareholding that rather dwarfs all the others. The Wallenbergs not only own Scandinavian and European companies, but also have a large stake in the world's richest tech companies, such as Apple, Google, or Amazon. This is because the Wallenberg family does not own individual shares in companies. It owns, at least in part, the entire technology exchange on which those shares are traded. By now, you have already gained a little insight into the Wallenbergs' corporate empire. In addition to all the companies the Wallenbergs own, they also have stakes in countless others or have family members on their supervisory boards. The Wallenbergs' banking activities are also very numerous. So it is very likely that in your everyday life you will be confronted with products and services with which the mysterious family from Sweden makes a lot of money. In case you are wondering why we call the Wallenbergs mysterious, although their countless companies and business holdings can be investigated, the family itself remains in reality mostly in the background. The Wallenbergs living today prefer to live a life away from the limelight. At present, it is mainly family members Marcus Wallenberg, Jacob Wallenberg, and Peter Wallenberg Jr., who take on public appointments. Officially, incidentally, they state that their income as bosses is only 250,000 euros per year, while Jacob Wallenberg has also claimed in an interview that he has only 8 million in private property. In reality, however, the wealth created by the family dynasty over 5 generations is immeasurable. Among other things, Jacob Wallenberg owns this 320 square meter villa on the outskirts of Stockholm. The family has huge hunting grounds of its own and sometimes flies to the US for short holidays, where they particularly enjoy being transported to mountain peaks by helicopter for skiing. Another reason why the Wallenbergs were probably not known to you before is the family's strategy of concealment. While Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and others are constantly on Forbes' list of specific wealth figures, the Wallenbergs are not easy to count their wealth. And that's entirely appropriate. The Wallenbergs have cleverly created a global opaque network of companies, holdings, investment firms, and institutions among which billions flow back and forth. Their own foundations also help them save taxes. The foundations are so cleverly constructed that they do not falter even in dire economic crises and wars, and they permanently raise huge sums of money. In fact, a Swedish journalist tried to follow the family fortune more closely and found that the Wallenbergs are estimated to have between a few hundred billion and 3 trillion euros in total assets. Unlike many other super rich people, who are often harshly criticized for secrecy and tax avoidance schemes, this is socially acceptable to the Wallenbergs. And there's an important reason for this. The family dynasty not only creates jobs for millions of people around the world and is responsible for much of the economic success of entire nations, but the Wallenbergs also do a lot of real good with their foundations. In Sweden alone, they invest 90 to 100 million euros in education and research, and they do this every year. In addition, the Wallenbergs also support charitable projects worldwide, in which they provide clean drinking water for people in poor countries, for example. Their reputation is so great that to honor the services of Raoul Wallenberg, who saved many lives in World War II, even the then US President Barack Obama the entire Wallenberg family at their invitation. And so, it is no wonder that politics largely leaves the powerful family free to do as they please. Incidentally, this freedom does not exist within the family. The Wallenbergs, who meet once a year with about 70 family members for dinner, function so well as a dynasty only because they put enormous pressure on future generations. With great power comes great responsibility, and each family member is expected to achieve the clan's goals. In the 1970s, a then 47-year-old son even shot himself because he could no longer stand the enormous pressure from his father. The tone among the Wallenbergs is said to be generally harsh, and it is tradition to let descendants fight among themselves for the top positions in the family. The current heads of the family, Marcus and Jacob, were also in constant competition for decades until they finally reconciled. Nevertheless, both also expect their children, who are still minors, to fight for their positions in the Wallenbergs and outdo each other. That was our video on the mysterious family that owns most of Europe. Subscribe if you found the video interesting, and see you next time here at Wise Fool.